What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of DAG Life Podcast here at the Dean Aguilar Group headquarters in San Diego with your host, Louis Pisano, here at DAG. Today we have a very special guest, like always, a very good friend of mine, an incredible woman, a wife, a mother, a realtor, our closing manager, and a very special person to my heart, Miss Jannet Garcia.
Dang.
How are you?
You guys do that all the time for me. Shoot.
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm blessed.
Doing all right?
I'm great.
Blessed as always.
Hey, woke up today.
Yeah, that's it, right? Well, I appreciate you joining me. I'm super excited to take the time and sit down and get to know a little bit more about Janet's journey and kind of where Jannet is today compared to where she was several years ago, and just kind of learn a little bit more about you and being a part of your journey, and obviously seeing a little bit on the back end from an operational perspective and just learning more about Jannet. So tell me a little bit about obviously where you're at in your career now, being our closing manager here, but being so much more than that. Also being a wife, a mother, a realtor, all the things, right? There's so many things to encompass with you.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you got into real estate to begin with.
How much time do you have?
As much time as you want.
I think first and foremost, I couldn't do anything without God. Like, straight up. That is 100%. And life wasn't always that way.
Mm-hmm.
It became that way, I think, over the last 3 years. Because sometimes you need that like inner strength. You need to find a place of like, how the fuck am I going to do this?
Yep.
And it's not a function of can you or can I. It's a function of just figure it out.
Right.
Just make it work.
You just got to do it.
And
sometimes it's literally just
yeah.
So with everything that has transpired and you going through those moments of clarity, you're like, all right, it's going to happen regardless, and I'm going through this storm no matter what.
Yep.
What was that like for you, kind of transitioning into real estate compared to what your previous life was?
Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. However, I will tell you that when I first got into the industry, I knew it was the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
I love to manage chaos.
Okay.
And that's kind of what this is, right? The good, bad, or the ugly. Like, every day is different in this industry.
For sure.
Every client is different. Every relationship is different. But the one thing people will never forget is how you make them feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of what brought you to where you are today, tell us a little bit about your journey and how long you've been in real estate, and what's been probably one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your length in real estate.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so way too long in the business to even admit. However, I will tell you that I was a realtor before I became part of any operations team.
Okay.
And so I've had different roles over the course of my career. I started literally at the bottom. I remember walking into an office when the crash happened, so 7, 8, 9, and going like, whoa, I have this skill set. I have a degree. I've had a 10-year-long career in a whole nother industry. What does that look like for me now? And I didn't understand that you had to start at the bottom.
Right.
I was like, what? Like, I couldn't comprehend that. However, I would not be today where I am if I didn't start at the bottom back then. And so making things work, finding trinkets and processes and software and systems and working with people comes very natural to me. And so it also comes very easy. And so when I see things that don't function or don't work, it's a natural ability for me to go like, bullshit. Like,
right.
Let's figure this out. Let's make it work. And
For sure.
anytime I've been part of a brokerage that finds these things out about me, I get wrapped into the operations naturally without even applying.
But I think that speaks volumes about, one, who you are as a person, 2, your skill set, and 3, your value, just encompassing not just a role that you play, but also the person a part of that brokerage.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be super proud of.
I never thought about it that way.
Perspective, right? And in terms of, obviously, from the realtor scope, looking at the outside looking in, is you're one of the few people that make the entire team run and operate, right? And that's a super important part, because it's one of those things where, although here at DAG we do have a very well-oiled machine and a fucking super beast, take out 1 or 2 of those parts, it's a lot to make up for it.
Yeah.
And you're one of those 2 parts. So,
but I think there's growth always.
100%.
Right? And so I learned this from a mentor of mine who is a dear friend of mine still to this day. And he used to always say, well, what are you going to do at your next job? Mm-hmm. And now I've always told employees that. I've totally implemented that into my, like, when I meet someone before we hire, before we make someone grow into another position or have them naturally grow, that's crucial to me, and it's so important because I
sure.
do believe that it's important to discuss it. And I used to have managers who would say, well, don't say that, we don't want them to leave.
But it's a good thing because your whole and here's a just kind of tag on to that, right? I learned at a very young age the difference between a leader and a boss. A boss wants to manage people and be the head person in charge the entire time in perpetuity.
Yeah.
A leader's responsibility and role, in my opinion, I'm assuming similar to how what your mentor told you, a good leader is going to help people become a good leader.
Mm-hmm.
And your role is to help people get to that next level, to grow to the next level, whether that's past you, further ahead of you into a different role, different industry, different company, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that as a leader, you're not a leader, you're a
Mm-hmm.
boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we differentiate the two, which we've had the honor and pleasure of having specific mentors and leaders that have
Yeah.
helped us kind of see that. Luckily enough for me, I learned that when I was 24 years old with my
Nice.
first mentor and leader. And I was able to kind of navigate my way through life to understand this is somebody that I should want to work with or for.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone I need to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself personally, I'll always go unbiased because in my 3+ years in real estate, I've only known DAG, but that's because I knew the kind of leaders that Dean and Aphrodite were and the people that I should be around.
Yep.
And in terms of with you, you've been in real estate for quite a while. You've had a hand in growth of a lot of teams or brokerages and played a big part. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that process for you, seeing the other side of it from a growth perspective.
Yeah. So take it a step back about like seeing people grow.
Mm-hmm.
I have had some previous employees that still remember my leadership, will still reach out to me to this day, or they're still friends, and they'll always say, and now they run their own businesses on the operation side.
It's amazing.
Or they become full-time agents and they're like, I love this better, right? Or whatever the case is. And they'll be like, I'll never forget X. You taught me Y. I'm like, that's freaking awesome.
And it's impact. It's a
it makes me feel good.
100%.
Right? And so I think that's always going to be part of naturally who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way it makes me feel. And I love seeing people happy, and I love seeing them grow. And those are important things for me always.
Love that.
In terms of operations, yeah, sheesh. Several brokerages later, and not many, but enough to be able to say, here's what I did and how I made an impact in a previous role, right? And so funny that we were bringing it up. I met Dean and Aphrodite over 11 years ago at a previous brokerage where we were transitioning them on board. I was the director of operations at the time, and it wasn't technically my role to do that,
right?
But it needed to get done. And it meant coming from LA to San Diego to literally pack them up and move them in, also shake their hands, also go home and like kiss my little baby and like figure out dinner, right? But the point is, that is how that relationship got built.
Right.
And here we are 11 years later, and now having seen Dean and Aphrodite grow from themselves and an assistant to themselves and assistant 3 agents to 110 plus.
Yes, ma'am.
Blows my mind,
Crazy.
but also not surprising. So blows my mind from a perspective of this is how big someone can grow when somebody wants something bad enough.
Right.
And also how can I participate in a way that is mindful of everyone's needs, and also how can I play a part in making the circle go round.
And it's, in terms of like your path to getting to where you are now, what would you say from a realtor perspective is some of the things that you've seen from whether it's individuals or a team, lessons that you would take away to explain to other people of how to grow a team properly, or how to carry yourself properly compared to the old school style of real estate?
Oh my gosh. Sheesh, speaking of like old school, so like triplicates are real. And what I mean by that is like there used to be triplicate forms, contractual forms. Old school, weird, didn't make sense to me. So to see, even just to have that example in my head and to be able to say like, you literally have to touch nothing. You don't even have to touch a client. You can meet a client on Zoom, right? COVID era times. But I think with that in mind, always learning, always wanting to be a better agent, not just from a human perspective, but like also knowing how to be better than all of the other agents out there. And so I'm huge on education. Most of my business budget is based on growth, learning. I'm in the process of earning my master's right now because that's so important, right? Like I just feel like what's in my bag and how do I continue to grow that, not just from an operations perspective, from my own personal growth perspective. I want my boys to see and also not have excuses like, Don't come to me with your shit, because if I figured it out, you could figure it out too.
100%.
And so for agents who are either new or experienced, who love this and who really want to do this, you have to continue learning
Facts.
from other folks, from, different folks for different strokes. But whatever that way is for you, figure out what that path is so you can always be bigger and better.
The empowerment is amazing to see. We have so many incredible women on our team that balance the whole family, being full time, doing whatever that looks like, even fathers on the team. So, talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced to make it all work.
I mentioned God and faith to me is important, but my husband's important. None of this could also be done without his support and him hearing my days of like, ooh, I might need a vent today, right? But we have this thing that we do at home where it's, do I need comfort or do I need advice?
I love that. I have another expression. It's, do you need solution or do you need support?
Okay.
Right? Same thing though, same component. Something I actually learned in therapy.
Yeah,
so
really?
It works.
Okay. Well, no therapy here. That would be a lot too, but we're Mexicans. We don't believe in therapy. But with that being said, I think it's important that we're all going to have our moments, right? And it could be a shitty client. It could be a shitty colleague.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be shitty traffic. It could be any function of the day that can, or it could be a multitude of things that could also make me feel like I'm having a moment and I need to just like breathe it out or think it through. And sometimes I'm solving my own problems by saying like, hey babe, right? Like here's my issue. And so he's in operations as well. And so him and I have, it's so weird. When I have those days, he also has those days at work. And then he'll just look at me and he'll be like, do you want me to tell you what I think? And I'm like, no.
Just let me speak, damn it. Just stand there and listen.
But then there are the days where I'm like, what are your thoughts on this? Mm-hmm. And then, those are the days he's like, what? She actually wants to know what and I'm like, yeah, I do, because I do hit that wall sometimes where I'm like, as much as I'd love to do it all, I do have my moments where I'm like, ooh, need another perspective. And to be fair to the team, I have called some of the women on the team and I have said, you know what? Here's my situation. Here's the client that I'm dealing with. Can I just hear your perspective? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you right now, Jamie is one of them that'll be like, oh my God, and you called me? And I'm like, yeah. Everyone has a different personality.
Of course.
Everyone has a different career path. Everyone has been in the business differently, but everyone has a different opinion.
Right.
And sometimes I think I just need that.
Whether it's dealing with a relationship, whether it's dealing with a colleague, whether it's dealing with a client, there's always going to be a perspective you look at of how to deal with certain situations. So in terms of like your journey through this process, what are some things, like some takeaways that you would say have been some of like the most eye-opening moments through like dealing with clients, like outside of the operational side?
Yeah. I'm kind of spoiled. I attract good people.
It's because you're a good person. Because you're a good person.
So I can count in one hand how many times I've had a shitty client.
I wish I could say the same. Well, I wish we could all be like you.
Yeah.
What's the secret other than being a good person?
I think it's just being myself and being very straightforward. Mm-hmm. There's no sugarcoating in this business, right? When someone buys a house, hypothetically, let's go down that path. If it's not a new construction, I'm like telling them you're buying a used car. Yeah. Things are going to happen because sometimes there's this disillusionment that people are sold on, and you're not going to get that from me.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything's going to be so great. You're going to deposit, and then in 30 days you're going to close.
Shit's going to go south.
I'm going to walk you through and guide you through, because that's my job. That's my role, is to guide you through the process to make you feel good in every single decision you make. I don't make any decisions, and I tell my clients that all the time. I'm here to provide you with the level of service so you get to make all the decisions. Mm-hmm. And I think that gives them ownership. And I think that gives them no room to be upset or angry or feel unsure.
In terms of you going through your processes, what would you say for real estate, other than being a good person, is the biggest lesson that you've learned to this point?
Oh, to always learn. Every transaction is different. Sales side, buy side, clients, every single transaction is different. Something someone else told me recently that I'm going to start implementing in my business is, she said to me, something always happens in every deal.
Right.
And she's right. Her husband's a realtor. Um, she said, why wouldn't you all just video blog or shoot, take out a notepad and write down anything that happened in this transaction that you thought was important or that was different from the last transaction you closed? And I thought that was brilliant because I'm thinking, from that perspective, there could be something that happened in this transaction that may happen again in
Right.
6-7 deals later. And I could go back to not just have to try to from memory remember what happened and how I solved it, but also go, okay, here's what I did, here's what worked, here's what didn't, and how do I apply that? Any of those things could happen. And I think that's the best part about collaboration and about being part of a team. Tons of agents are solo agents, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think in this industry, you grow from learning from other folks and other deals.
Right.
And also, nobody gets so buyers don't get keys until a transaction closes. An agent doesn't get paid until a transaction closes. A seller doesn't get their money until a transaction closes.
Correct.
All of these pieces need to function together as one to get to that goal, right? A seller needs to sell, a buyer needs to buy, an agent is providing a service, and we're earning our value and our dollars from providing that service. And so I think that's super important, but I think that's how more people should think about it.
So, and again, right, your experience is obviously speaks volumes to kind of the journey that you've had so far in your real estate career. It's far from over, and being where you are now, um, looking back to where you were and getting into real estate, what was your vision coming into it compared to where you are now? Like, how much of a full circle part of it, or is it complete 180?
No, I think it's so many moving pieces. I think the one thing I told my one friend who brought me into real estate was I literally said to her, "And you get paid for this?" Literally. And but also the other, and that's the operation side of me that was like, things could be so much better.
Right. They always can be.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but not a lot of people don't think that way.
Right.
They just go like, no, this is how I've done something. This is how I want to do it. This is what's comfortable for me. And they're very kind of set in their ways.
And hesitant to change.
I don't know how to work that way. I'm like, no. Easier, better, prettier, funkier. How do you make this easier for you? How do you make this easier for a client? How do you make this process align with what options we have today? And I think that's super important. So in terms of what expectation I had, I don't think I had an expectation.
Okay.
I think I was in my 20s. I think I didn't know what I didn't know, and I wouldn't do anything different.
Did you think you would still be in real estate today?
100%.
Okay.
I knew that for sure.
Good. At what point were you like, okay, I want to call that home? Because you've been closing manager now for a little over 2 years,
gosh.
right?
Yeah, a little over.
Okay. So what was it where you're like, okay, this is the moment, this is the change I need to make, this is what I want to happen?
You know what? It happened simultaneously. I was part of the team Xavier Dean. So this is now like before Big Block, right? Before we transitioned over. So I was always part of the team in some way.
Right.
I just wasn't needed back then.
You've always been needed.
And I was doing like other things. And so it took for something to happen for them to remember that. And I'd like to think it was because I know how I made them feel and vice versa. And so they reached out to me and they were like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you need?
You want to come home? You want to do this?
And so it was a function of like, here's kind of what we're thinking. And is this something you're even interested in? And I think, and you would have to ask Dean what my reaction was, but I think I said something like, "Let's rock and roll."
Yeah, let's do it. I love it. And I think that was my exact expression. Like when I first met them, I was like, I don't care what else you have to fucking say. Just make me sign whatever I gotta sign. I'm in.
Yeah.
We've all had these conversations with people that are either getting into real estate, looking to transition elsewhere. What are some things, if that comes up, if it does, when it does, what are some things that you would kind of shed light on to where it might be something to consider to other people?
Oh my gosh. Oh, where do I even begin?
Minus the partying.
No, it's not even that.
I'm just kidding.
It's not even that, right? There's people like to talk about culture. Oh my God, we have culture. No, you don't. And you don't have it like us. That's the reality. And let me even just take it a step back. I had a FOMO. when I would see like the types of gatherings that happen in the office and the camaraderie and the collaboration and the fun,
Yeah.
because this industry is hard. And anybody that's like, oh my god, it's so much fun and easy. No, it's
No,
you're
it ain't.
bullshit.
It's
Just cut the
once in a
shit.
while.
Cut the shit, right? And so with that being said, I think that we're people
Hmm.
and everyone still wants to have fun.
Right.
And so I think there are many teams that exist and they all come from a good place of like, we're here to nurture you and grow you as an agent, etc. But they're missing the part where you could still be family and you
Right.
could still have culture where you're having a shitty day or your family needs you. But then this family comes and also helps and supports naturally. And that's hard. And so when you find that, keep it,
100%.
stay, right? It's like when you meet a partner. If you know when you know, I know when I knew. My husband knew too. And I've heard other people say that, but it's the same thing. Like
Right.
if it's a good fit, you feel it in your gut. And so culture is huge. Collaboration is huge, and making people feel good.
Hmm.
And that's how I feel. That's how I'd like to think the team all feels that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
Besides with obviously having that good blend of balance, but at the same time, it's not just being there as family in terms of like business. It's also personal life and
Oh, a
personal development.
thousand percent.
More importantly than the business development, I think
Oh,
I think sometimes it goes unforeseen about the impact people can have on your lives outside of work.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the main things that I often talk with about people because I've had over 700 conversations in the last 2 years with new agents looking to join a new team. And it's always about, hey, listen, the real estate games are going to happen because of like our coaching, our training support, our systems and processes. It's what kind of person are you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can we help you grow as a person, personal development? And are you going to be a person who is going to feel at home because we want everyone to feel at home? And I like to describe it as we're a very unorthodox, rambunctious crew that does a lot of fucking real estate.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, it's more about the family component more than anything else.
yeah. I think it's important to continue to feel good. And
Hmm.
I think whoever you work with, that's important, right? Because that bleeds into your system, your mind, body, and soul. And also, that's what you're giving your family at home.
Hmm.
And that's what you're giving your clients.
For sure.
And so it has to be full circle. If you are not happy going into an office or being on a team, your family is going to feel that. Your clients are going to feel
Hmm.
that. No matter what you tell yourself.
You could look back and talk to 18-year-old Janette
Oh,
with the life that you've lived since you were 18
sheesh.
for where you are now. What is one piece of advice you'd want to give her about continuing on the path she's on, changing things, or keep going, whatever that looks like? What's a piece of advice you would give her right now?
Oh my God. I'm stronger than I think.
Love that. Elaborate, please.
Um,
I'm going to challenge you on this one.
uh, I think sometimes in those moments of shittiness,
Hmm.
um, I think those moments are hard. Whether it's industry, career, or family, doesn't matter. Sometimes there is a point where you're like, I just don't know.
I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah. And this feels hard. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't have been given a challenge if God didn't think you could get through it.
I agree, and I think it's something to remember where the things that happen in life are not to us, they're for us. And we're always going to grow through everything that we go through to get to the other side. And at the same time, we're not going to be presented with a challenge if we're not capable of getting over it. And I think
Yeah.
that's super amazing.
Yeah, I think sometimes having gone through so much so fast, I had to start life really young and really early.
Hmm.
So graduated high school at the age of 16, and then I started college that same year. I think so many things happened that I had to grow up really quickly. But with that being said, I still wouldn't change anything, right? Because giving that to young people now, oh, it's amazing. I'm like, oh my God, you're stronger than you think. Oh my God, let's figure it out. Yeah,
And it's about how you respond.
yeah.
How are you going to respond to get over that hump?
Yeah, my mom says sometimes she says, I don't understand how you do so much. And I say, and I don't understand how people do so little.
I just got chills. Yo, I just got
I
chills
know.
because I agree
I didn't,
so much.
it doesn't click in my mind.
And obviously going through so much in life, right? One thing that I talk with everyone about on the series because it's something that's super pertinent to our family here at DAG. Talk a lot about legacy
Yeah,
and the importance of what we want to be remembered for, what we want to leave behind when all is said and done. you look at Jannet way down the road and you look back, that life is flashing before your eyes, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think I would be proud if my kids and my family knew that I always worked hard, and for what. I don't think working hard is for money. I
Mm-hmm.
think working hard is to have a good life. And good life doesn't mean money or trips or nice things. I think a good life can mean just having your family. Those moments can be taken away so fast,
Instantly.
and tomorrow's not guaranteed. And so, whatever the good life for me is now, I have to continue that in my future. And that has to be my legacy so that my kids know that as well. And even whatever future grandkids are. I come from a small family, but my husband's part of a big family, and they're my family. And I think taking care of each other and having those moments and feeling good about, um, we're always going to live life to its fullest for that day is so important. And so if I could share that and make sure other people knew that, there's no second guessing with me.
I love that.
So if someone calls me and they're like, let's do X, Y, and Z, if I can make it work, or if I need to move one, I will absolutely drop what I'm doing, because that person either one might be needing something in that moment, or they just want to share time, or that person may not be here tomorrow and I didn't say yes, and that would bother me.
Appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for watching another episode of Dag Life Podcast. We'll see you next time.